The Friday morning rant contains adult theme, adult language, and well, today not so much any humor. But if viewer discretion advised, that's all I'm going to say, because I'm not going to joke around that much today. Welcome to the Friday morning rant with Shane Halfyard. It is Friday, May 7th. Sorry, I don't know why I said May. It is Friday, June 7th, 2019. If you are hearing construction in the background, I apologize. I don't know what they're doing on my street, but they're doing something, and it's loud. So I'm hoping that it's not too bad in this recording. But this is the only time I have to record, so it is what it is, and please bear with me. So, 2 weeks ago, I talked about domestic abuse, and I spoke about how my mother and I went to women in transition home, right? And I did the math, and I figured it was early 1986. I think probably February, March, around that area of 86. Okay? So that's what I think. I could be wrong. Mom, if you ever hear this, you can correct me. But yeah, it's definitely early 86. I'm pretty sure of that because I did what grade I was in, what school I went to, blah blah blah. So I've already went to the fact about it was a domestic violence thing. So and then it was 86 I went into. But before I get into that, I did get an email regarding that show, and I will read this email and respond. Dear Mr. Halfyard, I've listened to your show about domestic abuse, and I heard your story about your childhood and how your parents were. I wanted to say that, in my opinion, your mother made a mistake getting back together with your father. She put herself and you at risk by doing so. It's been my experience that men don't stop abusing women in their life. Perhaps it happened while you were sleeping or while you were not around, but I do believe your father probably was still abusive to your mother. Perhaps it only may be verbally, but I guarantee you that there is still abuse going on in their relationship. I feel once an abuser, always an abuser. That's why I'd never get back to or stay with any man that would lay his hands on me. I do want to say that I could tell that the topic wasn't easy for you to talk about, and I wanted to thank you for sharing your story. It was interesting to hear a male's point of view and a point of view of a person who grew up in this type of situation. Even though I don't agree with everything you said, I did subscribe to your channel and am looking forward to what else you have to say on the subject. Warm regards, Christy. Well, Christy, first of all, thank you for the email. I appreciate it. If anybody else wants to chime in on this, please email me at shanehalfyard@hotmail.com or leave a comment down below, and I will read it online. Christy, even though it's a serious subject, you are now in the draw for the $25 gift card of your choice for this month, and you will be in the draw for the $100 gift card of your choice in December. And thanks for subscribing. You must be one of the 10. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you. I can see where you're coming from, why you would be hesitant to get back together with someone who has abused you. From your letter, maybe you've already been abused. In an abusive relationship, I don't know. But it could be a strong possibility. But there are factors you got to take in, right? One, my parents were babies when they had me, okay? My mother was 16. My dad was just turning 18. So they didn't finish growing up, okay? Two, they were heavy into drugs and alcohol. So, being teenagers. Now, they weren't teenagers when we went to transition house. It was, 10 years later. But they were still under 30. And they hadn't grown up yet, right? They did not grow up they didn't start acting like real adults until they were in their 30s. Okay? I don't know where that stemmed from. I'm not an expert. But I do know that partially is when you start doing heavy drugs at a young age, you can relate better to people. Like, if you start doing drugs at 16, you can relate even in your 40s to a person who's 16 than you can an adult. I read that somewhere, so I will look that up someday and I'll put that online. Because something changes in the wiring of your brain. Now, I don't know if that's permanent unless you keep using drugs, but my parents were using drugs a lot for a long time. Okay? So, drugs was a factor. Youth was a factor. The burden of having a family at such a young age probably was a factor for both of them. If I've given you the impression that my mother was an angel to my father, please understand that she wasn't. Sometimes she'd be really nasty to him at times. Sometimes she was nasty to me. Just like he was nasty to her, and she, it was a cycle. It was a rough time for them both. But my father took this as a wake-up call, and he got off the drugs. And my mother took it as a wake-up call, and she got off the drugs. And they didn't get right back together. This wasn't something they just jumped back into. They got together later on that year. It was probably at the end of the summer, close to the fall. In fact, I'm certain it was the fall, because I think we moved in October. Yeah, we moved in October of 86 to a new apartment. So, yeah, it was like 7 months, give or take. We'll say between 5 and 7 months, okay? Give me some buffer room there. Because, again, I'm giving you through the memories of a child here. So, like I said, they didn't just jump right into it. They started dating when we were living on our own. And then they just started getting back together. And as for could it be going on when I was sleeping and whatnot, impossible. Okay? If you've ever lived in a cheap apartment, nothing can go on in that apartment without anybody else hearing it. Okay? It's impossible. All right? There's no way I wouldn't have heard it. No way possible. Because my parents' bedroom was right next to mine, and I heard everything else that went on in there. So I would have heard the abuse, right? Because my dad isn't a quiet man when he would get mad. So, and my mother isn't a quiet person when she gets mad. So I would have heard it. And their behavior would have changed. People don't understand that kids pick up on behavior really easily. And where I am almost completely blind, vocal tones tell me a lot. Like when I hear someone talking, they may think they're fooling people when they act like when there's something wrong with them, but you can hear it in someone's voice. 9 times out of 10. There are probably some expert liars out there that could fool me, but it's far and few between. Especially if I'd gotten to know them first. If I don't know them, yes. But if I've known them for years, and I would pick up on the subtleties in their tone, subtleties in their movements, and I would pick up that something was wrong. Because I knew when they were arguing. Because, you at the breakfast table, it was pretty awkward. But I do appreciate the letter. I do appreciate you sharing. And I do appreciate you giving me an opinion. Thank you, Christy. Thank you very much. So, now I'm going to talk about my experience at Women's in Transition House. Now, first of all, I tried to get a hold of someone. Either our schedules weren't meshing up, or maybe she just wasn't comfortable being interviewed. I'm not sure. I'm hoping to do it again, to do it sometime. But I can't, I can't keep putting the show off. So, I'm going to talk about my experience. So, like I said, it was late winter, early spring of 1986. My mother and I ended up going to Transition House. Now, I'm not going to say where it was in 86 because it could still be there, and I'm not going to give any information like that away. We got put into this home, and I think it was 3 stories high. Yeah, I remember it being 3 floors high. So they must have converted the attic into rooms. We got shown to our room. It was mid-afternoon, and it was it was it was a bunk bed and a single. My mother took the single and I took the top bunk because, all kids love the top bunk. And that was our room for about, I think, 6 weeks, give or take. And I looked around. There was a room that was full of toys and a big play area. I thought that was awesome. I never had a room dedicated, like, besides my bedroom. I mean, like a playroom. So I thought that was there. Awesome. And the women there were very friendly. I always remembered that. They were very friendly, even though I was kind of shy and I was socially awkward back then. Like, I was a goofball back then. And, I didn't really know how to interact with a lot of people because I wasn't around a lot of people. I was the only child, and my interaction solely was at school and then home. And because of my thick glasses and what was going on at home, I wasn't, a very social kid. So I had a hard time making friends. So when I was in there, I kind of kept my distance from everyone. But they were still very kind to me. They'd probably seen 1,000 kids like me. And they would encourage me to, play with the other kids or talk to them. If I went to the kitchen while they were cooking, they would let me sit there and talk to them while they cooked. And gently nudge me to play with the other children. The other thing, now again, this is from a child's point of view, they had cable TV in the living room. Okay? To me, that was awesome because I'd never seen cable TV before. Right? And you gotta remember, I only had the CBC and CTV. Oh, and the French channel, which was useless to me because I don't speak French. But they had up to channel 30, and it was this old. The remote control wasn't like a remote control, as in the standard TV remote. When you pick up the remote, you can carry it around the whole house. No, this thing looked like a wooden box. It had 15 numbers on it, 1 to 15, but a clicker that you push down, and then those 1 to 15 would convert to 16 to 30, and that was it. And it was a cord connected to the television. So it couldn't go very, you couldn't carry it around the house or nothing. It was right there. But to me, that was like high-tech, state-of-the-art. And you got to remember, 70s and 80s, everything had to have wood on it. Okay? I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but everything had to have some sort of wood paneling on it or look like wood. Like, remember the old video game systems like the Atari? The Atari had wood paneling on it. Why? So, anyway. So, I got to explore the whole house. It was huge. The people were very kind. But they told me that I could never tell anybody where the house is. Like, if any man on the street says, "Oh, are you in transition house?" or "Is that where you're living? Can you give me directions?" Never to tell anybody. Right? Because what they were worried about is, ex-boyfriends, husbands showing up and causing problems. So, of course, I kept the secret and still have to this day. I've walked by that house several times. Again, I don't know if it's still the same one or not. They may have moved, but the place that I stayed in, I walked by often, almost, when I would do my errands in the summer, I could walk by it every day. But my mother said, now I asked her some questions before I came on, made the show. My mother told me that they helped her make a resume. They talked to her a little bit about counseling, but she didn't believe in that my mother comes from a time that you don't believe in counseling. Now she would go to counseling if she needed it, or but back then, you keep your house business in your house. You don't talk about it. That's how she was raised. That's how I was raised. Right? House business is house business. You don't tell anybody anything. Right? And to a degree, that's a good policy. I mean, but when it comes to people, when you're being hurt or abused or mistreated, house business is not house business. That's when you need to reach out to someone. But she didn't partake in the counseling, she told me. But they did offer it to her. But she did take, she got help making a resume. She did take him up on helping her find an apartment, and helping her find work if she needed help finding work. But I think she found work on her own. But she was looking. They were helping her do everything they could to get out of there, because they want you out. Like, they want you in and out within 1 month to 2 months. Well, that was the policy back then. But it's not that they're still not there to help you. Right? If my mother had said, I still need to see someone and talk to someone and a counseling there, I'm willing to bet they would have made arrangements. It's just that there's so many women that need help, and they only have so many beds. Of course they're going to try to get you out and about on your own so they can help the next person. But my time there with the people who worked there was fine. But sometimes I was bullied and mistreated by the elder kids that were there. And of course I wasn't easy to get along with either, because children, they're going to act up when something bad's happening. Especially when you have a parent that is incapable of helping you through it. My mother was not capable of helping me through that. She was too busy trying to get through it on her own. And this is not an attack on her. This is just, it is what it is. Some people can emotionally be there for their children. Some people can't. Right? So, I was bullied and picked on because I was small for my age, short, and, wasn't frail. People always made that mistake. They thought because I was shorter than them and I had glasses that I was going to let them bully me. But I would do like a fight twice a week in transition house. Right? That part sucked. But I got through it. And my mother got through it. We ended up moving to a 1-bedroom apartment in a basement. My mother gave me the bedroom. She slept in the living room. And we lived there for, I would say we moved in there near the end of my school year. Not quite the end of my school year. Oh yeah, the other thing. This was one of those things I thought was a cool perk. I can't say they do this now, because again, I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody. But when I was going to school, they kept me in the same school. So I would have to take a taxi. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I would have to take a taxi from Transition House to my school. And I thought that was awesome. Because it was like I had a personal driver. It was like, it was like I was Bruce Wayne. I know, that's a terrible thing to think. But you when you were in that situation, you found the perks and the silver lining wherever you could. And I was pretending to be Batman being driven around by Alfred. And that was it. So there. But anyway, so as I said, we lived in this small house. And small apartment, And my mother was working. She was working at a restaurant. That's one of those things that she could always get work at. My mother was a good cook in restaurants, right? And so she could always find any work cooking in a restaurant. So she was a cook, and she was gone a lot, like working quite a bit. So I was one of those latchkey kids, But at this point in time, my school was literally all I had to do was cut through the backyard into the neighbor's yard and cross the street, and I'd be at my school. So that was really sweet. That was pretty easy to get to and from school. No excuse not to be late, though. And so we lived in that apartment for till the fall. It was October 31st we moved out. All right. And the reason why I remember that is because I don't know what it is about my family and moving on freaking Halloween, but for the three times they moved, excluding the last time, but 3 times in a row when they moved, it was on Halloween. Okay? We moved in 1986 on October 31st to an apartment. And then in 1996, we moved on October 31st. We moved from that apartment to a mini home, a trailer. And then it was 2006, October 31st. We moved. I wasn't with my parents. I wasn't living with them, but they moved from the mini home to their house. Now they have since lost that home. My father is very ill and cannot work. So my parents were trying to keep the house, but they realized they were going to lose it, so they sold it before they went, they lost it before they lost it, and ended up buying a nice little mini home. And my mom is a real trooper. She's looking after him. But all in all, my experience at Transition House was kind of half and half, positive and negative. Positive from the people who worked there, negative from all the children. But looking back, I understand. Those children were going through they went through a lot of shit too. They had a lot of issues. So they're going to take it out on what they think is the helpless blind boy, right? The socially awkward helpless blind boy. But in the end, it was the right place for us to be in, right? Despite the bullying, because bullies are everywhere anyway. Kids got to deal with bullies all the time. That's just part of life, right? I think how you teach your child to deal with a bully and how they deal with it will shape who they are when they become an adult. All right? So it's one of those they used to call character building experiences, and I believe in that. I do. I would prefer there were no bullies in this world. I prefer there be no abuse in this world, but that's not the world we live in right now. So we take the good with the bad. But my mother got a great deal out of being there, and at Transition House, and it gave my parents the space and time to clean up their act, sit down and focus and realize what they really want and what they didn't want. And it turned out that they still wanted to be together, and they got back together at the end of the summer, and they moved into each other in October. At the end of October. And was my childhood perfect after that? No, not even close. They still didn't know how to raise a kid, especially a disabled one, but they did the best they could. And that's one thing I know. And that's one thing I'll never put down. Like my father never missed a weekend to drink. He never missed an excuse to, party on the weekends. But he never missed a car payment. He never missed a rent payment. He never, no one went hungry. He did drink a lot to excess. He still drinks quite a bit when he can. But he had his priorities. And if I needed glasses, I got glasses. When I joined the wrestling team, he drove me to the meeting places where we all had to meet at the high school to get on the bus to go to an away game or away matches. And sometimes he had to get up at 5 in the damn morning and drive me there. So there was good and bad in that relationship. Same with my mom. My mom wasn't perfect either, but she looked out for me. And the two of them, they took a kid that was born almost completely blind, and they helped him become independent. And that to me once they got over once they got their shit together, that was very important. Like, I wasn't one of those kids that was afraid to try anything, right? I studied the martial arts. I now teach it. I was a wrestler, a weightlifter. I did all the things that I wanted to do in life. My parents even got me a bike. That's how freaking crazy they were. Because I wanted a bike. It wasn't that I didn't want the bike. They gave me a bike because I wanted a bike. And I'm willing to bet they were praying to whatever gods they believe in that I came home alive. Right? But their abuse stopped. And that was important. They'd have arguments. They'd raise their voices. But it never escalated to fists. And they didn't call each other names all the time. Sometimes they did. They didn't think I heard it, but I did. But most of the time, they would argue, and then they would, kind of respectively leave each other alone for a bit, and then one or the other would wing up with each other. So they really put an effort into the relationship, and you can tell now because they, they're still together, they're still getting along, they laugh a lot, and that's what's important, right? They took this horrible thing that happened in their past. They looked at what they did wrong, how they could fix it, and they made it work. And that's what's important. It ended, right? My mother doesn't throw it in his face that he still, that he did this, and my dad doesn't say anything to her about the past. They let it go. Oh, I kind of went off the topic, didn't I? Oh, sorry about that. It brought up a lot of different feelings in me when we're talking about this stuff. So, women in transition today. It's still there. You can still get help. If you are being abused or mistreated in any way, right, and you need a safe place to go, contact Women in Transition. You can do so by going to the webpage at womenintransitionhouse.ca, or you can call their 24-hour crisis line, 506-459-2300. Again, the webpage is womenintransitionhouse.ca, and their crisis line, it's 24 hours. You can call anytime, and you can remain anonymous. It's 506-459-2300. And this information will be in the description down below. That's about all I have for today. Sorry I kind of went off on these little side rants. I think I do that when I get uncomfortable. But I hope my story helps somebody. I hope that if you are someone who needs help, that you will call this number, or check out their webpage. I really do. Because the abuse isn't going to stop until you get out of that situation. Okay? And remember, you got to work on you then. Don't jump into another relationship. Don't just go, well, I'm breaking up with this guy, I'm going to date this other fella. No. You're going to need time to heal. You're going to need time to get to know you again. And I totally recommend you do that. Right? If they offer counseling, take it. Like I said, in the future, I'm still going to try to get a hold of someone from Transition House, and I'm still going to try to get an interview. But until then, just remember, just take care of yourself and each other. That's all for today. Bye for now.